coming to you live from above the Heineken River Deck at Pier 17. A lot happening in the NFC this week. Seahawks and Bucs losing, and the Packers and Saints with big wins to take the lead in their respective divisions. It's gorgeous out, by the way, Max. 70 degrees, sunny, just really nice out here. Hi, Ryan. Hi, Stephen A. Okay, Stephen A., I want to start with you here. Who should be the favorite to win the NFC right now?
Well, listen, I know everybody's going to say the Saints, but for me, it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers still, because regardless of them getting romped and stomped the way that they did last night with Brady looking like straight garbage and Bruce Arians, Byron Leftwich, and Todd Bowles not really looking much better, the reality is that I expect the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to look significantly better, particularly as Antonio Brown gets up in the mix. Remember that when you look at the New Orleans Saints last night, I don't know whether it was Janoris Jenkins or whoever it was, but they had him going everywhere that Antonio Brown went last night. And then Marcus Lattimore, obviously not him and Mike Evans having somewhat of a truculent relationship. If you listen to the reports, they had him following Mike Evans around everywhere. Mike Evans just had about 4 receptions for about 64 yards, and clearly he didn't seem like himself. This is a guy that didn't perform against the Saints in the opener as well. You got to anticipate that those things won't continue to happen. I'm looking at Chris Godwin, who obviously can ball, but in the same breath, he was somebody that they dared to do something. Maybe it was a splintered finger or whatever the case may be, but they didn't seem to be fearful of him. That's not going to continue. And then you saw Rob Gronkowski drop a pass in the end zone that he almost would never drop. I don't think something like that's going to continue. I don't think you're going to see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers run the football 5 times an entire game. I don't think that will continue. I don't think you'll see them get in the 14 and 21 and 28-point holes. So as a result of that, I think that last night was an extreme aberration. I think that once the playoff time comes, I'm able to look at the New Orleans Saints and I'm able to say, okay, the Stephon Diggs miracle pass catch and TD run 3 years ago. You follow that up with the pass interference that was no pass interference call, and then last year you lose to Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. I just get the impression that New Orleans had its chance. I think this is Tampa Bay's chance, and I think that Tampa Bay will elevate and shine when all is said and done in the NFC.
The answer is the New Orleans Saints. They should be the favorites in the NFC at this moment. Preseason, I liked the Saints. Then the Jamal Adams trade happened for the Seahawks. I said, I think maybe the Seahawks inched ahead of them there. And then we've seen the Packers and the Bucs look, alternately really good so far this season at different times. The Bucs, you make a good case, Stephen A., like they got a lot of stuff, and they got Antonio Brown, and you expect sometimes to take 1 step back before you take 2 forward when you're integrating a giant new piece on the offense. But teams change over time. Let's see what happens when Jamal Adams gets back fully healthy and integrated onto the defense, right? When Bakhtiari comes back to help out Aaron Rodgers in pass protection. All those things. Same thing with the Bucs and AB. Same thing with the Saints, with Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders back. The difference is the Saints, when you look on paper preseason, had the continuity, the quarterback. In recent years, the run defense that other dynamic offenses lacked around the league, when you looked at the Chiefs a couple years ago or teams like that, you said, well, they have the offense, but can they stop the run when they need to? The Saints look a little bit better set up that way. The thing that they were missing, all-world running back, all-world receiver, all-world, obviously, quarterback, was a number 2 receiver. They picked that up in Emmanuel Sanders, but they really haven't had their full complement of players yet this season. And they picked up Quan Alexander, who's a good linebacker, to buttress the defense. So not only are they coming off a very impressive win where they really haven't fully integrated their pieces yet, but on paper they look like the best or one of the 2 best, and they're just coming off a statement win. They've swept the season series against their divisional rivals, and for the first time have the thing that they were missing on offense. When you look at it, considering how they're playing and what they have, I'd have to say at this moment the Saints are the favorite in the NFC.
Man, listen, I was on the Tampa Bay train, and here's why I was, because I thought to myself, the Saints will be better than Tampa Bay at the beginning of the season, and then Tampa Bay will continue to ascend as they get the chemistry, as they start to come together, and they'll be the best team. But Tampa Bay is kind of riding this roller coaster. And so then I look back at the Saints and I start to think, why did I believe that they would win the NFC South in the beginning of the season? It wasn't actually because of the offense. It was because I thought they would have a championship-level defense. I thought that Malcolm Jenkins would come over and be very good in covering tight ends. I thought that outside Janoris Jenkins and Marshawn Lattimore would be excellent 1 and 2 corners, and that they had a very good nickel in C.J. Gardner-Johnson. We obviously knew what the front was. We know Demario Davis is an all-pro. And so, but as the season was going along, they weren't playing defense. And then you saw them kind of like eke out wins over teams that we didn't really consider very good. And obviously they had the 2 losses early on in the season. And so now you go back and you look at that. You say, yeah, they eked out a win over Chicago in Chicago. But that same Chicago team beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then you go back and you look at the loss to the Las Vegas Raiders, which was ugly. It was in prime time. It was on Monday Night Football. You know, you couldn't necessarily believe that the Raiders looked so good against the New Orleans Saints. And now looking at the Raiders at 5-3, you say, you know what? That's not a bad loss. And then Aaron Rodgers is cooking and they get beat 37-30. And you say, well, Aaron Rodgers is one of the top teams. And so I look at the NFC and I think to myself, the 2 best teams, when you look on paper and when you see what the season has gone, you would think that they probably are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New Orleans Saints. And when I look at those two teams, one thing stands out. They've played 2 times and the New Orleans Saints have won both times. And honestly, the first game was actually closer in score than it was on the field. And you do look at Mike Thomas coming back. You see Emmanuel Sanders coming back and what they add to this passing game. And then you realize they probably have the best all-around back in football, and that's including Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara. And when the team plays like they played last night, right? Not this team that doesn't push the ball down the field, not this team that doesn't get the stops. When they rush the passer the way they do, when they force turnovers the way they did last night, when Drew Brees gets an opportunity to sit in the pocket and pick apart zone defenses, but they can't be stopped.
That's the
they
problem,
can't be
Ryan.
beat. And so if these 2 teams play, go ahead.
That's the problem. I think that really what this is talking about, when people don't put the Saints there, the reason they were flying under the radar is actually an indictment about the way people think about Drew Brees. When you think about the other NFC quarterbacks,
Yes.
I mean, Drew Brees at this stage in his career, Russell Wilson's dynamic. Aaron Rodgers is dynamic and strong-armed, and Russell Wilson can kill you through the air on the deep ball too, right? Forget about Mahomes, we're talking about the NFC. Tom Brady, whatever you want to say, still has a strong arm, right? Like you think of him as a strong-armed quarterback. Breeze we think of as, you know, not quite a wet noodle yet, but it's starting to get to that territory.
It's dink and dunk.
But right,
yes,
but he's super, does he, and he's not fast like some of the other guys, but does he have other qualities that are extraordinary that offset it? He's the most accurate, right? Like Drew Brees is the most accurate passer of all time. And a lot of the yards through the air, I think, have been artificially depressed by the fact that Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders haven't been available to him. So I think a lot of the perception of the Saints is not really ultimately the team you pick, is actually talking about the way the public feels about Drew Brees. And I'm just here to say, with his weapons now, I think we see a different Drew Brees, and people are going to start readjusting the way they think about this team.
I have no idea whether you're even capable of giving a quick answer to this question, but I'm going to try, Max Kellerman. Over the last 3 years, have the New Orleans Saints been Super Bowl contenders, yes or no?
Yes.
Have they let you down?
Yes.
Thank you. How many strikes do you get?
They didn't have a number 2 receiver.
I'm just saying, there's 3 strikes. No one's questioning the greatness of the New Orleans Saints in terms of their talent, what they can do against whom. The point is that you only get but so many shots. We've lamented this on many occasions, especially you, Ryan, as a football aficionado that you are.
Listen,
you do get to a point. You do get to a point where it ain't even about your talent. It's about the fact that you had not 1, not 2, but 3 separate chances,
okay, Stephen,
and you couldn't get it done. So I'm just looking at it,
but
and I'm saying,
if that's the case,
you know, that's where I'm at. I'm sorry, Ryan. Go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah, in your sport, though, you got it, Stephen. In your sport, though, you can say the same thing about a guy like LeBron James. It was time after time that he was getting there, and he wasn't winning.
No. Can I retort?
And then
let me respond to that. I disagree with you. I disagree with you because in a sport like basketball, individuality can conquer a lot of things. Like the greatness of LeBron James compared to others is so clear. You know, I mean, clear to everybody but Max Kellerman until Kawhi Leonard went home. But the bottom line is, you look at the individuality of basketball, that's different. Football needs so many different components to come together.
Stephen A., I have no idea.
But this team is retooling.
I have no idea if you're capable of answering this quickly. But I'm going to ask you anyway. Have the Saints got bad breaks over the last 3 years from the refs, yes or no? Have they had bad breaks, yes or no?